So, good morning class. So, we are now in our module 10 in practical research 2. So, this module is made by Division of Palawan by Mark G. Jabilunar. Okay. So, in this module, it talks about the conceptual framework and definition of terms and hypothesis. Okay. So, to give you an advanced idea what is conceptual framework, so this is the structure of your study. Okay. So, by merely looking at this framework, you can easily determine the variables and the methodology used by the researcher. Okay, using the conceptual framework alone. Okay, so let's discuss that further later. Okay, so let's have first your competency for this module. So at the end of this module, let's have the competency. Okay, so this module is divided into two lessons. So lesson 1 is about conceptual framework. Then lesson 2 is about writing research hypothesis. Okay. So these are the expected output. So number 1, trace a step-by-step process on writing conceptual framework. Number 2, demonstrate and describe the conceptual framework. Number 3, write a concept framework. 4, identify and define operational and conceptual definition of terms. And 5, explain the meaning, purpose of hypothesis and research, and formulate research hypothesis in quantitative research. Okay, so we'll proceed now to what I know. Okay, directions. Read the questions carefully and choose the letter of the best answer. Write the letter of your answer on separate sheet of paper. And again, do not write anything on the module, so you just answer on your yellow paper. Okay. Okay, number 1. If work adjustmental challenges is defined in research paper as the problems and difficulties encountered by teachers upon their entry to senior high school, what type of definition and others the researcher use? A. Operational definition. B. Conceptual definition. C. Textual definition. D. Functional definition. Okay, correct answer is letter A, operational definition. Okay, number 2. Which of the following helps the researcher to map out the action required in the course of the study given his observation of the subject matter and his previous knowledge of the other researcher's point of view? A. Definition of terms. B. Research hypothesis. C. Theoretical map. D. Conceptual framework. Okay, the correct answer is letter D. Conceptual framework. Okay, number 3. Which of the following consists of concepts that are placed in a logical and sequential design? A. Definition of terms. B. Research hypothesis. C. Statement of the problem. D. Conceptual framework. Okay, correct. It's letter D. Conceptual framework. Okay, number 4. If the research question is, what is the relationship between the students' interest and their performance in practical research subject? How would you formulate your conceptual framework? Okay, so just choose in this ABCD. Okay, the correct answer is letter A. The student's interest is linked with this performance in practical research 2 subject. Okay, number 5. If the direction of the relationship between variables is indicated, which classification of hypothesis is it? A. Non-directional hypothesis. B. Null hypothesis. C. Directional hypothesis. Then D. Alternate hypothesis. Okay, correct answer is letter C. Directional hypothesis. Okay, number 6. There is no significant relationship between teachers' adjustment challenges and job satisfaction is an example of which hypothesis? A. Non-directional hypothesis. B. Null hypothesis. C. Directional hypothesis. D. Alternate hypothesis.
Okay. Sige, mas maayo.
Okay, correct. It's letter B. Null hypothesis. Okay, number 7. It defines a concept based on terms on specific ideas, principles, or theories associated with the term. A. Definition of terms. B. Operational definition. C. Conceptual definition. D. Conceptual framework. Okay, correct answer is letter C. Conceptual definition. Okay, number 8. If your research is examining the relationship between students' correct senior high school track and the factors affecting their choice and their opinion toward school guidance program, which conceptual framework is best suited? Just choose in this A, B, C, and D. Okay, the correct answer is letter C. Okay, number 9. It is an essential part of research as it allows the researcher to ensure common understanding of key concepts and terminology is shared by the author and its audience. A. Definition of terms. B. Research hypothesis. C. Statement of problem. D. Conceptual framework. Okay, the correct answer is letter A. Definition of terms. Okay, for number 10, we have this figure. Okay, using the paradigm above, so all of the following hypotheses could be formulated except one, which is not a possible hypothesis. A. There is no significant correlation between the teacher's work, adjustmental challenges, and the level of job satisfaction. B. There is a significant correlation between a teacher's work adjustmental challenges and level of work performance. C. There is a level of teacher's work adjustmental challenge and level of work performance. D. There is no significant correlation between a teacher's level of job satisfaction and work performance. Okay, correct. It's letter C. 11. Which of the following statements about conceptual framework is untrue? A. Conceptual framework only helps researcher refine his central thesis. B. It is like a food recipe or blueprint of a building. C. Not all conceptual framework have to include a diagram or graphic. D. It provides an outline of the plan on how to conduct the research. Okay, the correct answer is letter C. Okay, 12. Which of the following is not a purpose of a conceptual framework? A. To explain observations. B. To encourage development of useful and practical theories. C. To provide background for interpreting study findings. D. To interpret studies and literatures related to the problem. Okay, correct answer is letter D. Okay, let's go to number 13. Pertains to a logical relationship between two or more variables expressed in the form of a testable statement. A. Definition of terms. B. Research hypothesis. C. Statement of a problem. D. Conceptual framework. Okay, the correct answer is letter B. Research hypothesis. Okay, number 14. If your research variables include students' interests and senior high school strand enrolled in, how will you write your alternative hypothesis? A. There is no relationship between the student's interests and the senior high school strand they are enrolled in. B. The interest of students and the senior high school strand they are enrolled in has no relationship. C. The student's interest has significant effect on the senior high school strand they are enrolled in. D. The student's interest cannot affect the senior high school strand they enrolled in. Okay, correct answer is letter C. Okay, last number 15. A research paper defined the word homosexual as a person who is sexually attracted to people of the same sex. A definition adapted from Merriam-Webster dictionary. Which type of definition the author has used? A. Operational definition. B. Conceptual. C. Textual. D. Functional.
Di alam kung wala.
Okay, correct answer is letter
Ang wala.
B. Conceptual. Okay, I hope you got all the correct answers correctly. Okay, we'll now proceed to our lesson 1. So, illustrating and explaining the conceptual framework. Okay? Okay, so this lesson will help you trace the step-by-step process on writing conceptual framework, gain knowledge in order to demonstrate and describe the conceptual frameworks, and write a conceptual framework. So, brief discussions of the lesson and activities for you to master the required competencies are included in this self-learning module. Okay, let's have this what's in. Okay, in the previous module, you have learned how to formulate clearly the statement of research problem, which provide the study structure, direction, and guideposts. The activity below will help you recall how to formulate statement of the problem. Okay, so let's have this review first. Activity 1. So you answer this in your yellow paper. So this is our research topic and it's SOP or statement of the problem. Okay, so why do we need to review this? Because this topic is related to our topic now, especially in conceptual framework, because we will anchor that in our research problems. Okay, so you answer this and submit this to me. Okay, let's go to what's new. So once you formulated the statement of the problem of your research project, it is needed that you correctly identify the variables, concept, and theories which play essential part in writing your research. Okay, so the activity below will help you get ready for the lesson. Okay, you answer this activity number 2, fill me up or fill me. So using the background information activity 1, fill in the table by supplying what is being required. Okay, so recall the activity 1. So identify the variables in the study. Then next is the concepts linked to the variables. Then third, the theories which you can use to identify the concepts. Okay, so I know you can do this because you already know what is a variable. Okay, so make sure you have already identified, especially in your study, the variables needed. Okay, so make sure you read literatures before choosing your topic. Okay, because that will help you refine your research and also in framing your conceptual framework. Okay, let's go to what is it? Okay, so what is a conceptual framework? So it is defined as an analytical tool that explains the main concept to be studied or investigated in one research. Okay. Then number 2, it offers the foundation and fundamental basis of the entire research. Okay. And number 3, it is like a blueprint, master plan, or a recipe that provides an outline of the plan on how the research is to be conducted. Okay, so by again, like I said earlier, so conceptual framework is a blueprint for the structure of your study. So by merely looking at it, so the readers of your research can easily determine what are the variables and its indicators in your study, and they can also identify what is the research methodology based on your conceptual framework. Okay. Okay, next. It is a graphic or visual form of the different variables of the study and the alleged relationship among these variables. Although not all conceptual frameworks have to include a diagram or graphic. Okay. Next, it is used in research to plan possible sequence of action or to present an ideal method, an idea, or thought. Next, the literature review is the logical basis of conceptual framework. Okay, so that's why you need to read literatures first before having your study. Okay, you must have a pre-reading, okay, about the topics that you want to have your research. Okay, so after you read, for example, you read 20 articles, so that's the time you decide that you will have this research title. Okay, so have first a background of your topic. Okay, okay, what is the purpose of conceptual framework? So explain ideas and suggest associations among the ideas in this study. Okay, so because this is a diagram, so you can determine the associations between the variables of your study. Okay, so later I will provide a example of a conceptual framework based also on the research problems. Okay, next, provide an outline for interpreting the findings of study, since a operational framework defines the scope and limitation of the study. Okay, next, explain observations and encourage the formulation of useful and practical theories. Okay, next. Okay, suppose that the permitted standard problem based on the background information are as follows. So what is the demographic profile of the respondents? Number 2, what is the level of the respondents' financial literacy? 3, what are the factors affecting the respondents' finances? And is there a significant relationship between the level of financial literacy of the selected professionals and the factors affecting one's finances? So by carefully studying the formulated statement of the problem above, so we can say that the level of respondents' financial literacy and the factors affecting their finances are the two variables of the study. Okay, so you look at this illustration here. If we're going to visualize the above variables, let's presume relationship. So the conceptual frameworks so will look like this. Okay, example. So the profile of respondents, level of literacy, factors affecting finances. As you can see, so this is our independent variable. So in making conceptual framework, so it is customary that on the left side, this is your IB and this is your DB on the right side. This arrow points this, so this is the directional hypothesis. Okay, so later I will discuss that. Okay, the sample conceptual framework presented above can be presented in a narrative way. So the conceptual framework presents that research variables, respondents, demographic profile, level of financial literacy, and factors affecting respondents' finances. It also shows that factors affecting respondents' finances have something to do with their financial literacy level. Okay, examining the sample above of how conceptual framework is being prepared, so one can say that conceptual framework is an excellent visual summary of the study, as it helps the reader to easily identify the research variables and presume relationship amongst it. It's therefore important to carefully write the research questions, identify the variables of the study, and craft the research framework well to correctly identify the method or the procedures used in the study. Okay, so to have a step-by-step process on how to make a conceptual framework, so let's review first your statement of the problem. Okay, so in our set of the problem, we have here these types of questions that we are going to include in your study. First is descriptive. So it is describing a particular situation or phenomenon under research study. It covers the characteristic of people or materials like the socio-demographic profile such as age, education, marital status, income, etc. Okay, so later I will provide an example of this. Then it uses descriptive statistics, which involves describing, displaying, or arranging data. So example of that is pie charts, bar graphs, pictograms, etc. Okay, so you already know this in your math in junior high school and also in your gen math. Okay. So example, we have here research question. What is the most favorite type of movie watched by teenagers today? This is descriptive questions. Okay. And number two, what is the most used technology in Davao City? Okay. Those are examples of descriptive questions. These are the tools or physical tools we are going to use if we have our descriptive questions. We have here the mean, median, mode. So you already studied this in grade 8. Then percentiles, so I think you discussed this in grade 10. Then variable, so variance, standard deviation. So you have already a review on this in statistics and probability. Okay? So just review. Next, we have comparative. So it is used to describe by comparing the categorical group independent variable towards the outcome or dependent variable. For example, we have here IB. So types of communities, this is our independent variable. Then it points out to the dependent variable. So usually this is our type of conceptual framework. So the common types we are going to use in our study. So since you are a newbie in our research, so you will have this simple conceptual framework. Okay, so we'll not go to the complicated ones. So that is for advanced researches. Okay, so requirements, so independent variable should be nominal scale. Then number two, dependent variable should be interval or ratio scale. Okay. Next, sample of descriptive question. So what is the population rate of the following types of community in Davao City? A, urban, then B, rural. Then we have this inferential question. So is there a significant difference in the population rate between urban and rural community in Davao City? Then number 3, so another type of research question, this is correlational. So it is described the connection and relationship between two variables. So these variables already occur in sample population and are not controlled by the researcher. Okay. So usually correlation, we have here double arrow to signify that is correlated or the two variables are being compared or having associations. Okay, so let's have this. Let's proceed to so let's have this. Two types of correlation, we have positive and negative. Okay, what's the difference? So when you talk about positive correlation, if the first amount increases, the other variable increases. Okay. Then number 2, so negative correlation. So if one variable goes up, the other goes down. Okay, so that is the difference between the two types of correlation. So in your grade 11, you have already the person product moment of correlation. Okay, I think we discussed there. So if you get a negative correlation, it means that so if one variable increases, the other decreases. Okay, example, if your variable is your distance traveled and the amount of gasoline, okay, in a car. So the more you travel, so the lesser your gasoline. So that is an example of negative correlation. When we talk about positive correlation, example, your variables are your power consumption and the amount you paid. Okay, so if you use more power, it means that your bill in Davao Light is greater. Okay, so that is positive correlation. Okay, so this is an example of saying of the problem. So descriptive. So what is the NAT score of the following types of schools? So A, public and private. Okay, so as you can see here, so these are the two indicators, okay, of this variable here, the NAT scores, okay. Then the differential, so is there a significant difference in the NAT score between public and private schools? Okay, so if you're going to make a conceptual framework on this study, so this is how it looks like. Okay, as you can see, we have here, so the variables, so we place it in box or square, okay, and then points out to this not performance. As you can see, the pattern in making conceptual framework, so we have the IB on the left side, then DB on the right side. Okay, so do not forget that. Okay, so I hope you get it. Okay, next let's have for example, this is the research title of the study. Okay, so comparison of the NAT performance to the types of school among grade 11 students in District 2, Davao City. Okay, okay, next. So the searcher wants to determine if income has a relationship to mall spending among employees in Davao City. So perform the following. So create a conceptual framework and label the variables. Number 2, formulate the specific statements and formulate a research title. Okay. Okay, so this is our conceptual framework for that study. Okay, income, then mall spending. Okay, so I hope you have already that information in mind on how to use or how to make a conceptual framework. So as you can see, these are your two variables. So that's why I instructed you to read topics, then associate variables. Okay. This is the example of the SOP based on this conceptual framework. So number 1, what is the average monthly income among employees in Davao City? And number 2, what is the average monthly mall spending among employees in Davao City? And third, is there a significant relationship between the income and mall spending among employees in Davao City? Okay. So this is the research title based on that conceptual framework. So the relationship of income and mall spending among private employees in Davao City. Okay, let's have another. So supposing this is the SOP, descriptive questions here are, so what is the numerical status of students in grade 7 rows? And number 2, what is the level of reading skills of students in grade 7 rows? Okay, so as you can see here, you can already determine what are the variables used in the study. Okay, so if you're going to make here the conceptual framework, so this is how it looks like. Okay, as you can see here, this is our IB, the status, then DB, reading skills. Okay. Next, this is a study. So another example. So this is our question. So what is the monthly average of beds in the in quarantine facilities? Number 2, what is the monthly average number of COVID-19 recovered individuals? Then our differential is significant relationship of number of COVID beds in quarantine facilities and the number of COVID-19 recoveries. Okay, so the conceptual framework is like this. Okay, as you can see, so our IB is number of beds, then the dependent is the number of COVID-19 recoveries. Okay, so I hope you get the concept on how to make the conceptual framework for your research. Okay, so this is the pattern already. Okay, so I already given you the soft copy on the format, so you can start making now your conceptual framework. So make sure you read again a lot of literatures to support your conceptual framework. Okay, okay, let's go back to our module. Okay, so you answer this activity 3. So I already given you an example on how to make conceptual framework. So directions, we analyze the statement of the problem below and prepare a conceptual framework, illustrate and explain your conceptual framework. Okay. So SOP, this study aims to assess the readiness of locally produced products in the municipality of Nara International Trade. Specifically, it seeks to answer the following questions. 1. What locally produced products in the municipality of Nara that has potential to exporting? Number 2, what are the issues encountered by the local product manufacturing affecting export readiness? And third, what is the level of readiness of local products to exportation? Okay, so you make a conceptual framework, okay, based on this SOP. Okay, so just like my example in my PowerPoint. Okay, so that is your guide in making this activity. Then what I have learned, again, you answer this activity 4, draw to grow. Illustrate your learnings by drawing a symbol using drawing materials. Explain how your chosen symbol represent your learning. Okay, so you do this again in your yellow paper. So this is the rubrics on how I will grade your outputs. Okay, next, what can I do? So the knowledge and skills that you have gained in the lesson will not end by just acquiring it. It must be applied and used in your daily living. Activity 6 will help you transfer the skills, knowledge you have learned in the real life concerns. So activity 5, case analysis. So read, analyze the scenario below. Prepare a diagram that will show the relationship or the connections of the given facts in the scenario. So you are a graduating senior high school student who's facing the following problems. So your family is facing financially struggling, and number 2, your family problem is affecting your academic performance negatively. So despite of the problems that you have, you still wanted to finish high school. So using your learnings on the conceptual framework, so you make a diagram that illustrates the relationship in your problems and your goals. Okay, so just like in my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so you make a conceptual framework. Okay, so by the way, that PowerPoint belongs to the division of Davao City, so I give credits to that PPT to them. Okay, so that is not mine. So I just use that to support my topic of discussion today. Okay, then again, so you answer this assessment. Okay, so this is 1 to 15. Okay, you answer this. Okay, so if you have questions and clarifications, so you just PM me in my Facebook account. Okay. Okay, so we'll now go to lesson 2, which is about hypothesis and definition of terms. So in this lesson, you will learn the importance of defining the terms you use in the study and formulating the hypothesis. The definition of terms helps the researcher to clarify the purpose and direction of the conduct of his or her study, while the hypothesis indicates that she or he has adequate knowledge about the research topic he is studying. This lesson will provide you but meaningful topic discussion, and ample activities to help you easily learn how to formulate hypotheses and prepare a definition of terms used in the study. Let's go to what's in. So on a previous lesson, you have learned what is a conceptual framework. So conceptual frameworks maps out the plan of action to be taken in the study to clarify concepts and propose relationship among the concept, provide a background on interpreting the findings of the study, explain observations, and investigate development of a theory based on the study findings. Lastly, a conceptual framework can be presented by writing a narrative and through diagram. So, writing a conceptual framework provides a big help to the researcher to be on track, and the researcher advisor and other researchers can be guided in analyzing the study. Okay? Activity 1, so striptease. So prepare 12 strips of paper, copy and write the following fragments of sentence in each strip. Connect the strips by linking the phrases written on it and paste it on worksheet, forming the definition of words, hypothesis, and definition of terms. Okay, these are the strips. Just copy this in your paper, then cut the strips and connect them to form the definition of the hypothesis and definition of terms. Okay? Okay, what is it? So the striptease activity gave you a preview of the lesson, formulating hypotheses and defining terms used in the study. So below discussions of the topic will give you more in-depth understanding of the topic. Okay, what is hypothesis? It is a specific proposition which is presented for testing through research. Okay, so as you have seen in the PowerPoint I presented earlier, we have the inferential type of research question. So that will serve as the hypothesis of your study. Remember the illustration here. I will go back to my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so as you can see here, in this inferential question, so is there a significant relationship of the number of beds in the quarantine facilities and the number of COVID-19 recovered individuals? So this serves as your hypothesis in your study. So this is the one that will you find answers for, or you seek answers for. Okay, so this is the question. Okay, so that is how. Okay, that's why we need to have our hypothesis, so that we will test it. Okay, in a research example, in this question, we're trying to prove if there's a relationship between the number of beds and the number of COVID recoveries. Okay. Okay, next, it is a logical relationship between two or more variables expressed in a form of a testable statement. Just like what I presented earlier. So that question, you need to seek answers to it. Okay? If there is really a relationship between that two variables. Okay? Then number 3, hypothesis is an educated guess or a hunch of the researcher on the outcome of the research based on critical insights or observation. Okay. So you can have these concepts if you read your related literatures, or you read a lot of articles. So you can have your educated guess that these two variables are related. Then the hypothesis is verifiable and a testable statement that reflects the purpose of the study. Okay, so you need to, okay, that is the characteristic of the hypothesis. It is verifiable and testable. Okay, then the literature reviewed, not the researcher idea, shall be the basis of formulation of a hypothesis. So take note of that. So it must be based on the literature or the previous studies, so not your own idea. Okay, lastly, it is composed of independent, or the cause, and the dependent, the effect variables. So it's like in the illustration here. So example in the PowerPoint presentation. So let's go back. So you can see here, we have this IB and the DB. The number of beds is the independent variable. The DB is the number of COVID-19 recoveries. So as you can see here that it comprises the IB and DV. Okay? So let's go back again to the research question. Okay? So you can identify here from the question that is the IB and the DB. Okay? So what makes a good hypothesis? Explains the expected outcome of the study. Okay, so from that diagram or the conceptual framework, you can expect the outcome that there is a possible relationship between the two variables. Okay, then it sets the limitations of the study. It is clear, understandable, testable, and measurable. It is based on facts and theories. It presents the variables of the study as its relationship. It must be based on the main research question or problems. Okay? So just like the example I said earlier, so if your question in inferential question is about relationship or difference, so your hypothesis must be based also on that. Okay? So do not make a hypothesis that is different from your research question. So that the two must have that term congruence. Okay? Okay, next. So let's have these two types of hypothesis, the null and alternative. So null hypothesis, the symbol is HO. It pertains to the claim that the means of the variables under study are equal or the values are zero. This assumption that the values observed has no change. Okay, example, there is no significant relationship between the memory boosting tablet and the student's score in examination. Okay, so take note, it is a statement of neutrality. Okay, so you can determine each or null hypothesis by the word no. There is no significant. Okay, and letter B, the memory boosting tablet has nothing to do with the student score in examination. Okay, as you can see, so that is the null hypothesis. Okay, when we talk about alternative hypothesis or the HA or H1, it is a statement that states the complete opposite of the null hypothesis as it suggests potential outcome of the study. So example, it is also the affirmative hypothesis as it claims that there is a significant change, effect, relationship, not equal, not the same, and not equivalent to zero in the value of the means being studied. Okay? Example, there is a significant relationship between the memory boosting tablet and the student's score in the examination. Then letter B, the memory boosting tablet significantly affects the student's score in examination. Okay, so I think you have discussed this in your probability and statistics about null hypothesis and alternative. Okay, so just review these concepts. Okay. Okay, then another, we have this directional and non-directional hypothesis. So directional talks about the direction of the relationship between the variables is indicated. For example, children of the family with low income experience more inferiority than children of the family with high income. Okay? So take note of the word here, directional. It has more, less. Okay? It tells you the direction of the relationship of the variables. Okay? Then number 2, non-directional hypothesis. So there is no indication of direction of the relationship between the variables. Okay, example, there is a difference between the inferiority complex of children of family with low income and those family with high income. And what is the difference here is that non-directional hypothesis does not state the adjective more or less. Okay, so that's why it is non-directional. Just tell you that there is a difference, but we cannot tell that that difference is more or less. Okay, so it's non-directional. Okay, points to remember: reject the null hypothesis if the sample supports the alternative hypothesis. Then, accept the null hypothesis if the sample does not support the alternative hypothesis. And third, if the study failed to reject the null hypothesis, it means that it needs to gather more data. Okay, so I think, so you recall this concept in your hypothesis testing in grade 11. Okay, I think that is your third chapter in stat and probability. Okay, so how to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, example using the t-test, etc. Okay, so I guess you're familiar with this already. Okay, you just review your stat. Okay, so let's go now to definition of terms. What is definition of terms? It explains the variables used in a study, operationally or conceptually. So we have these two types of definition. So definition of terms is essential to ensure a common understanding of key concepts and terminology used in a study between the researcher and its reader. So that's why in your study you need to have this definition of terms so that the readers can understand what you mean by this concept or how do you use this concept in your research. Okay, so their ideas might be different from yours. Okay, to have a common understanding, so you must have this definition of terms. Next, it helps both the researcher and the reader to have a clear understanding of the key terms. Okay, just like I said, so you must have this to have a clear understanding of your research. Okay, two types of definition. We have operational and conceptual. When we talk about operational, so it is defined the terms on how it is measured in the present study. Okay, for example, the performance refers to the students' academic grades in technology and livelihood education in the school year 2014-2015. So when you talk about operational definition, it talks about the researcher's definition based on how he or she use it in his current study. Okay, that is operational definition. Okay, when we talk about conceptual, so this is based on specific ideas, principles, theories. Okay, example, you get the definition from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, Oxford. Okay, that is conceptual definition because it is based on principles already. While operational, it is based on the researcher's judgment on how it is used in the current study. Okay, so I hope you get the difference of the two types of definition. Okay, by taking note of the examples of operational and conceptual definition, the definition of performance, example, refers to the students' academic grades in technology and higher education subject in the school year 2014-2015. So it is an operational definition since the term was defined according to its use in the study. On the other hand, the example of conceptual definition, execution of an object, public presentation of exhibition which is adapted from a dictionary is called the conceptual definition. Okay, take note of that. Okay, let's have these points to ponder. So the definition of terms must be listed alphabetically. Okay, take note of that. Then, define only terms or variables that have unique use or meaning in a study being conducted. So in making your definition of terms, you just include the terms that are difficult to understand for your readers. So you need to define it. So those terms that are simple to understand, so do not include it in your definition of terms. Okay. The next, using observation of definitions from dictionary as much as possible is avoided. So define or explain variables in terms of how it is operationally used in a study. So it is more preferred to use operational definition. Okay. So in defining a term, use only one paragraph. Okay. So take note of this. Only one paragraph. Next, activity number 2. So hypothetically speaking, write a hypothesis for each of the following variables. So you will identify the IB and the DB. Okay. Example, what is the effect of extracurricular activities on the student's academic performance. Okay, so your IB here, so I'll just give an example. Okay, so you do the rest. Okay, so here our IB here is the extracurricular activities. Then our dependent variable here is the student's academic performance. Okay, you get it? Then let's have the hypothesis. So what is the hypothesis now? So just state it in null hypothesis. Okay? So you may state here, since it's talk about the effect, so there is no effect of extracurricular activities on the student's academic performance. Or you can state that extracurricular activities has no effect on students' academic performance. Okay, so that is the hypothesis. Okay, so you just do the rest of this activity. Okay, so this is the rubric and how to grade your activity number 2. Okay, then let's go to activity 3. So define definitely. So we have here two words, 5 words. So you define them conceptually and operationally. Okay, so I think it's very simple to do. So just answer this on your yellow paper and read again the rubrics. Then next, activity 4. So you find the correct answer of these statements here in this word cloud. Okay. So you select your answers. Example, number 1, it defines a concept in terms of specific ideas, principles, or theories associated with the terms. So you find the answer here. So the answer here is conceptual definition in number 1. So you write it here. Okay. So you do the rest. Next, what can I do? So mind map. So this activity 5. It's a sheet of paper. Draw a personalized map showing what you have learned and how will it affect your life. So let your creativity flow when doing this activity. Okay. So assessment. Again, you answer this in your yellow paper. So you do the rest. Okay. This is I think 1 to 15 again. Then additional activities. So read the situation or statement of problem below. Prepare an appropriate concept framework, a hypothesis, and identify the key terms in the following. Okay, so this is the situation here or the SOP. So again, your task is to make a conceptual framework, hypothesis, and definition of terms. Okay, is that clear? Okay, again, so if you have questions, so just PM me in my Facebook account. Okay, so have a nice day and good luck.